Today I'm going to be talking to you about some cover crops. As you can see from this fallow plot here, we've got quite a wheat structured soil. It's crumbled away and it's in quite big aggregates, which actually are quite hard to break. They will break, but they break into big groups. The benefits of cover crops are to add organic matter into your soil. It will improve nutrient retention, water retention and the flow of water in your soils. Here in front of us we've got a selection of different cover crops that you could use. I'll start on this side. We've got black oats here. You can see these have left the soil much more crumbly. It breaks up quite fine. It makes for a nice seed bed through minimal disturbance of the soil. Now the rooting systems haven't got down quite as deep as I'd maybe like them to do in this particular sample, and the soil therefore is still quite blocky underneath. But that isn't the end of the world. Through continuous use of cover crops in your rotation and potentially the use of organic matters as well, you'd find that that soil structure would get better within time. The benefits of the black oats here, as you can see, they've already died off. So we're stood here in March, you're looking to drill these fields. You don't have a high amount of trash that you've then got to deal with before you start drilling. We'll move on to another cereal here with the rye. You can see here actually this is moving as a block, and I can pick that up and it will all stay as one. That is what the roots are doing. They're holding your soil together, keeping the structure. If we try and break this apart, you can see that inside there we've got a mat of roots. They're keeping the soil together, but also they're breaking it up. So we haven't got the big aggregate sizes here. We've got much smaller aggregates, and therefore you're going to get a better seed to soil contact when you come to drill this with your spring cropping. It has got a high level of biomass. This could be topped, sprayed off, or grazed with sheep. The only thing to note with rye and with oats and other cereals for that matter when you're using them as a cover crop is that they have a high carbon content. So that means if you don't spray them off in good time, 6 weeks ideally before you spray a following cereal crop in particular, you can end up with nitrogen lockup in your following crop. Changing your nitrogen plan but will help to sort of release the problems there, but also the best way to do it is to get your termination timing correct with cereal cover crops. So 6 weeks before preceding a cereal commercial crop. Back to the fallow plot, and then over to what we've got here, which actually is volunteer rape. This is rape that you can see in the plots to my side here. It's grown because the farm grows rape. After they've harvested it, they plough everything under because their main priority here is to get the following crops in the ground so they can deal with their potato crop. What this rape plant has done, it's cheap, it's free. You've already paid for it once, it's grown in the ground, and actually you can see it has produced a really nice fibrous rooting system within the soil. Now that's left the soil in good condition. We've got straw and things mixed up down at the bottom. We've got a good structure, and it's grown already in your fields. You didn't have to do anything to that. There are downfalls, club root issues for instance, if you've got other rape in the rotation, but it's just to show you actually we don't need to spend a fortune in conditioning our soils. Use what we've got there already. Moving on to another brassica then, we've got a selection of radishes here. They, as you can see, have got a long root, quite an aggressive root. If you've got compaction, particularly shallow compaction, this is what you need to be putting in, along with what we've got over here, which is mustards. So again, if I knock that off, you've got a tap root. You'll notice, however, with the mustards, we've got a really long stemmy stem. It's quite strawy. It's high in lignin, and this can be a problem in your following crops. It can also wrap up around your machinery. So you need to be wary of how you manage that, i.e. it may need topping. Again, it needs spraying off in good time, or you can graze it with sheep, but it's something to just consider when you're thinking of putting mustards in. Mustards are quite cheap, they will do a good job, they will establish anywhere, dry conditions, wet conditions. They are your go-to easy option. Radishes, again, will establish in most conditions, and they provide that more aggressive rooting system down into a compacted area. as well as, actually important to note out, the fibrous roots that they come at the sides. You've got your worms coming in here because we're now feeding those worms. They're coming up to the top surface and they're providing drainage channels all the way through. So in here you can see holes all the way through your soil profile. That's drainage. Easy, done. You didn't have to do anything to it. And finally, we've got linseed. It's looking a bit dead now because of the snow that we've had this year, but a great species to use. What linseed does, and it might be better to show it on this photo that I taken last year, is it provides almost like a cobweb-like effect of roots. Works particularly well in any soil type, but I use it a lot in heavy soils. Because of the fine rooting mat that it produces, it will get in between the soil particles, breaks them up, creates that lovely tilth. Anyone that's grown linseed as a commercial crop will justify this. Well, they've seen this before. It's a really, really good soil conditioner. Doesn't produce too much biomass. The biomass it does produce is easily dealt with. Again, top it, spray it off, can even graze it as well. But what we should see is that it leaves us with a mat of sort of fibrous rooting systems in there. What is key is that you think about the cover crop species you are going to use. It has to fit into your rotation. You've got to be careful of things like clubroot. A lot of the mustards are clubroot resistant, but it's worth checking. And you've got to also think about your following crops. Where you're putting cereals in, avoid a cereal cover crop before a cereal commercial crop, unless you can guarantee you're going to spray that off 6 weeks before. That's cover crops. Has anyone got any questions?